你好，同学们，大家好，我是向老师。So hi everyone, my name is Dr. Xiaohua Shan, and I developed this grammar in context series for teaching Chinese modal verbs and a range of other particles. I hope you find this unit useful for your studying of Chinese, Mandarin Chinese. And this is a project funded by the Center for Advanced Language Proficiency Education and Research, CalPER, at Penn State. So in this unit, we will be talking about Mandarin Chinese modal verbs, 副词能、会、要、想、可以、得、应该。So you may have learned all these little words before in your study. They are attached to a verb to add various kinds of information. So this is a unit where we learn about these modal verbs. In the next unit, Unit 2, you will be practicing these units with exercises and with all sorts of authentic examples. So let's begin. As an overview, modal verbs are everywhere in every language. For example, in English, we have words like may, might, ought to, must, should. They help us to communicate ideas about our desires, our wish, or our estimation of how things are possible, to what degree certain things are going to happen, and to talk about one's abilities, can do this, cannot do that, or obligations, should do this, ought to do this, must do this, and so on and so forth. And Chinese has this range of modal verbs as well. So what is modal verb? A modal verb is the term we use to talk about the one little word or several words preceding the main verb of an utterance. It adds evaluative or attitudinal meaning to the idea expressed by the predicate. For example, 下雨, to rain. This is the predicate, this is the verb. 会下雨, it's gonna rain. 要下雨, also it's gonna rain. So what's the difference between 会下雨 and 要下雨? I know you must have some idea about this already. We'll kind of unravel that a bit. Or 开车, to drive a car. 能开车, can, know how to drive a car. 会开车, also know how to drive a car. So what is the difference between these two? Again, you have some ideas, so let's follow through. You can think about this in your as you follow. 会坐地铁, to ride on the subway. 我会坐地铁, I'm gonna ride on the subway. Or is it I know how to ride on the subway? 要坐地铁, I'm gonna ride on the subway. 想坐地铁, I want to ride on the subway. 可以坐地铁, I could ride on the subway. 得坐地铁, I have to ride on the subway. 应该坐地铁, should ride on the subway. This very brief overview is just to show you, with very simple, overly simple examples, to show you that these range in red here are modal verbs. They add your own personal evaluative information, what you think the situation is, what you desire to do, what you think is likely to happen, and so on. So in this unit, we'll be talking about modal verbs with all sorts of authentic language examples from media, from movie clips, TV shows, to show you that we have these modal verbs in our disposal. We want to make very good use of them. They help us to express nuanced and sometimes polite meaning, or sometimes assertive meanings. And they, in some cases, the meanings of modal verbs will differ between affirmative statements versus negative statements versus questions. For example, when you say 我能, I can do something. On the other hand, when you say 我不能, it doesn't mean you cannot or you don't have the ability. It means something else. So when you reverse the sentence we make a negation, sometimes the meaning might change. It's not a black and white flip. So we'll talk about that as well. And we also will be talking about the basic meanings of these modal verbs one by one, but also give you more broader context to show you how Chinese people also use them to make strategic moves in situations, to make personal meanings. And throughout this units, we'll be distinguishing the meaning of desires, one's personal volition, or estimation of possibilities, talking about abilities versus obligations. In some cases, we'll also be talking about how meanings may change if we have a human as the subject, the doer, doing things, versus a non-human as a subject. For example, you can 能 do something versus a vegetable or a mushroom can be eaten. A mushroom is edible. Also using the same modal verb, but the meaning is not ability, but rather capacity or a certain quality. So we'll talk about these nuances in meaning which you may not have encountered in your textbooks. I hope you find these materials useful. So let's begin with 能. So the first modal verb we learn will be 能 because it's very common, very typical, and also relatively easier to grasp. You know, or you may not know that 能 can also be used as a noun to refer to ability. For example, you see these two character words, 才能, one's ability. 你有什么才能? What skills, what ability do you have? 能力 ability. 他的能力很强. He's very good, very capable. 电能 electricity, electric power. So that aside, we are focusing on 能 as a modal verb, roughly translatable to English as can, is or are, be able to. The basic meaning is that one is capable of doing something. Importance here is that doing something as called upon by the occasion. So it's not about ability to do something, but rather about ability to do something so you can rise up to the occasion. You can use your ability to perform. That's the difference between 我能弹吉他 to play guitar. I can play guitar versus 我会弹吉他. I know how to play guitar. So for example, there's a band. They're looking for people to join the band. You can raise your hand to say 我能弹吉他. I can be the guitar player. Or you say 我会弹吉他. That basically tells people you know how to do it. But it doesn't tell people that you want to now be able to join the band if they're missing a guitar player. Something interesting for you to know is that 能 has this ancient form we see here, which is a pictographic form of a bear or bear-like a beast. So 能 used to mean a beast in Oracle Bones Chinese characters. It gradually, very, very, very gradually turned into a modal verb about ability. As you can see, if you are a bear, you're very capable. That's sort of very long historical connection there. So let's look at an example. So here is a commercial of China Mobile. So the commercial goes with this catchphrase, 想. I'll read the sentence here, you can follow along. Because it's not from textbook dialogue, so a lot of the words you may not already know. You can use this opportunity to expand your vocabulary. 想 战胜 to defeat, 战 to fight, 胜 to win. 想战胜对手 your opponent. 想战胜对手。首先 first, this is a formal register. 首先要战胜自己。First, 要 need to 战胜 defeat 自己 self. 想战胜对手，首先要战胜自己。 我能. So 能 here is highlighted in this catchphrase. It shows that 能 is really about you being able to master ability to rise up to the occasion to perform. We have other two modal verbs here, 想, want to, desire, internal desire. 要, something you need to do, you just need to do, no question about it. 能, can do. So let's look at this.
想战胜对手，首先要战胜自己。
我能。
Okay, so I hope this gives you an impression of what 能 does and how it differs from 想 or 要 in this case. Now, one thing to know is that when the subject of the utterance is a human subject, humans have abilities and skills. Typically, 能 with human subject refers to abilities in a statement. Like in this case, we're talking about Guinness World Records. So this one guy in Baxi, Brazil, has this world record that he can input a standard-sized text on an iPhone with the littlest amount of time. So we'll read this description here. 很多人都会在手机上打字. So many people know how to type on a cell phone. 可是 but 17岁的巴西小伙, so this Brazilian 17 years old guy, Marcel Fernandez Filho, I'm not very good in Spanish, but here it goes. 能, so he can, 能用17秒, use 17 seconds, 在 iPhone 6上输入 to enter, 输入一段 measure word for text, one paragraph, 标准长度文字, 标准 standard, 长度 length, 文字 text. So this is the formal register. As you can see, words are in 2 characters formation. One more time. 很多人都会在手机上打字，可是17岁的巴西小伙 Marcel Fernandez Filho 能用17秒在 iPhone 6上输入一段标准长度文字. So here we see the difference between 会 versus 能. So people all know how to do it, but this guy is capable of doing this spectacular thing. 能用. So I want to see another example. We'll show you the TV clip after this slide. I don't know if you know this show, but it's a kind of interesting 2014 TV show. It's the Chinese version of Spelling Bee called 汉字英雄. The 汉字 Chinese character, 英雄 hero. Heroes of the Chinese characters. So kids from all over the world, China, come to write characters, compete in that. So this one student comes up to stage and then introduces himself. He has a special skill that he has sort of pictographic impression of characters. He can tell you how many strokes there are in a second in any word. So he says, 大家好,我叫黄守成. So again, because it's a natural example, there might be a lot of words you haven't learned. I'll speak slowly here. 我叫黄守成, 来自山东省威海市, Shandong Province, Weihai City, 塔山小学, 塔山 Elementary School, 5年级, 5th grade. 我的爱好很多, lots of hobbies. 踢球, soccer maybe, kicking balls. 玩陀螺, one play 陀螺. 陀螺 is the Chinese version of spin top. 玩陀螺, 看书. 我最喜欢的是写字. 没事的时候 就爱在纸上写。What I like the most is to write characters. When I have nothing to do, I just love to write on papers. 我有一个绝活。绝活 means a skill that no one else has. 绝活。那是我 so that is 我能 I can I'm able to 我能瞬间 a split second a blinking of the eye 瞬间说出 to say it out 任意 any 4个汉字 4 character 的笔画数 number of strokes in them 我有一个绝活那是我能瞬间说出任意4个汉字的笔画数 So I have a special skill I can tell you the number of strokes in any 4 characters in a split second So the host asked him 马东几画 The host's name is 马东 So he's sort of checking on the boy right on the spot So how about my name? 马东 How many strokes? 马东几画 And the kid says 8 And that's correct. So let's see this clip.
哇，
怎么样，炫吗？
炫，够炫的。
介绍介绍自己啊。
大家好，我叫黄守成，来自山东省威海市塔山小学5年级。我的爱好很多，踢球、玩陀螺、看书。我最喜欢的是写字，没事的时候我就爱在纸上写。我有一个绝活，那是我能瞬间说出任意4个汉字的笔画数。
马东几画
？8。
汉字英雄几画
？31。
我的个娘啊！
这不。
Okay, I hope you like this clip. It's natural speech, so it's pretty fast. You can replay this if you like later on. So, 能 comes before the verb. It asks the meaning of capable of. Because it's a human subject, it means I can do this, as a kind of special skill. So what about inanimate subject? What if we're talking about the abilities of vegetables, certain kind of diet, or just things around us? For example, iPhone 6的电池 battery 能用多长时间? So this is a natural way of talking. How long is the battery lasting? iPhone 6的电池能用多长时间? 能用多长时间? Or mushrooms. Is it edible? Is it poisonous? 这种蘑菇能吃吗? Can it be eaten? 这种蘑菇能吃吗? Or a clause as a subject. You learned that a clause can be a subject. In this case, 不吃主食 not eating carbohydrates. 主食 in Chinese, it's the main meal. Meaning rice, flour-based things like dumpling. 不吃主食 not eating main meal. 真能减肥吗? Really can it help to lose weight? So 不吃主食真能减肥吗? And in all the 3 examples, we have inanimate subjects, either a battery, a phone, mushrooms, or a situation. They do not possess abilities like humans would do or animals would do, but in these cases, they are viewed as having certain enabling capacity. So 能用多少时间 can enable how long usage time. 能减肥吗? Enable weight loss. Enable eating. So that's how 能 is used with inanimate subjects. They mean the idea of enabling capacity. And when you talk about negation or question with inanimate subjects, the meaning doesn't shift. It's still the same idea of enabling capacity, either having this or you're questioning about it, or you say it doesn't have this kind of capacity. For example, in the examples we used, iPhone 6的电池能用多长时间? Answer, 能用6个小时, 6 hours. Or 不能用 you can use it for 超过6个小时 more than 6 hours 能用6个小时 不能用超过6个小时。Or next one, 不吃主食真能减肥吗？ Is it true you can lose weight without eating with not eating carbohydrates? 不吃主食能减肥 Yes, it can. 不吃主食不能减肥 No, it can't. Third example, 这种蘑菇能吃吗？ Is it edible, this mushroom? 这种蘑菇不能吃 Can't eat it. 这种蘑菇能吃 Yes, it's edible. So the meaning doesn't shift if you have 能 or 不能 or 能不能 or 能吗？ However, when we have a human as a subject, the statement, which means this ability to perform, rise up to the occasion, will differ from negation. Negation is much more ambiguous, much more wild in terms of interpretation. So in this example, 我们看问题不能绝对化。看问题 look at problems. The way we look at problems, 我们看问题不能 we can't. 绝对化 is a nominal, it means absolutism. We cannot do absolutistic views of problems. 绝对化我们不能绝对化我们看问题不能绝对化 We can't be like that. Second one, 对不起我有事儿不能去 Sorry, I have something to attend to, I can't go. 不能去 Third, 您的钱 politely, 您的钱是您自己的我不能拿 This is a, pretty easy to imagine the situation. Your grandpa will give you money and you say, 您的钱是您自己的 Your money is your own. I really can't take it. 我不能拿 So while affirmative 能 as we said before, talks about able to perform as the occasion calls for, the focus is on ability to perform. In negative form here, 不能 I can't do this, so you can do this. So the way we look at problem cannot be absolute. They are close to English phrase can't, not possible to do something, not focusing on lacking ability, but focusing on not enabled to do it due to all sorts of reasons. So there can be all sorts of reasons, not necessarily abilities. For example, first one, 我们看问题不能绝对化 We just can't be absolute. This is more as moral obligation. Like we just can't. Not about ability per se. Second, 对不起我有事儿不能去 I can't go. It's not about the ability, but rather about it's just not possible for me to go for some reason unspecified. 您的钱是您自己的，我不能拿 I can't take it. I'm kind of hand-bound by moral, for example. So when you have a 不能, the focus is that you are not enabled to do it. But the reason may not be ability inside of you, might be many other things. So again, human subject, when negated with 不能, the statement has slightly different meaning from negative statement. Okay, so next one will be 会. I hope you remember that 能 differs from 会 and many other modal verbs as it's talking about a kind of skill ability rising up to perform in an occasion. And we also have human versus non-human subject difference, and we have difference between statement versus negation. Okay, so we'll stop for now. And